What is up, y'all, and welcome to another video. If it is your first time stopping by my channel, I am Jeffro, and this is Jeffroz FishKeeping. Thought I'd go a little bit out of my element tonight and do an impromptu live stream and bring on a special guest. I wanted to maybe start bringing some education to my channel this year and start doing some more serious talks and stuff. And I wanted to talk about fish clubs because I've never been in a fish club before, and I just wanted to talk about them. So I decided to reach out to one of my buddies and see if he would go live with me tonight and talk about some fish clubs. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce him here in just a second, and we're going to talk for a long time. I mean, this is going to be a pretty long live stream tonight, and we're going to talk about some fish club stuff. And without further ado, I've got Jeremy from Sergeant Tank on here with me tonight. What is up, Jeremy?
Hey, thanks so much, buddy, for having me on. I definitely enjoy doing these collaborations. It's definitely an awesome time when you actually can, not only by yourself, try to initiate a conversation, but having, multiple people in there, whether if it's 2 people, 3 people, that kind of stuff. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I talk to Jeremy pretty much on a daily basis. He is a wealth of knowledge on, he just knows so much about everything, and he can just nerd out for literally hours, guys. And it's just so interesting to, to listen and to just absorb, because he really does know his stuff on a lot of things, and fish clubs is one of them. And I just had some questions here to ask. And, basically the first one is like, how did you get into fish clubs?
So for me, it was a buddy through my club. He worked for one of the local fish stores. This goes back 10, 12 years ago. And very long story short, he had encouraged me for a lot of years. Why didn't I get involved? That time, I was working full time, working several hours a week, working multiple, different jobs, that kind of thing. And it made it quite difficult to commit. And I'm an individual that's one of those when it comes to showing up on time and being there and staying active. I just know at that time it wouldn't even been feasible. So fast forwarding to about 3.5 years ago, I started getting more engaged. And then up until about 2 years ago, started pretty much full-time active, a little over 2 years now, as well as being on the board of directors through our local club. So started from a buddy of mine in the club, and that's pretty much where it ended up eventually getting me to the point to actually join up.
Awesome. So I have saw myself, having some opportunities to get in some clubs. One of them is like practically 3 hours away. Another one is 2 hours away. And then another one is 1 hour away. I've been to some swaps where some clubs were involved that, it looked like it was pretty difficult, like they were scrambling and different things. And not to talk bad about them or anything, but what, excuse me, what do you suggest? What are some things to look for whenever I go to a first club meeting? Should I try each one of those out? Don't just try to go to the closest one. Maybe try each one of those out. What are some things to look for?
So if it's in your time and your travels and all of that kind of stuff, I encourage you to try out multiple ones and not only stay active in one, but stay active in all. And through our own club, per se, there's many members that are involved in other and active members in other clubs when they can be. And again, it's still a commute, even for us. I mean, the next closest club to ours is about 45 minutes south of us. And there's still members through our club that have been members of that club where our club branched off from, back in '95 when our club was originated. And I know that we'll get a little bit more. I'm jumping ahead here, but I would encourage you to check them out. I would encourage anybody out there, if you're looking at getting involved with a local aquarium club, whether it be fresh or saltwater. A lot of them are geared towards both. I mean, a lot of hobbyists aren't just in one over the other. It can be a combination of both of those. And, they check them out, get familiar with the different aspects of it. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses, whatever that might be. Don't look at just the amount of members that are involved. It takes time for a club to build. It doesn't happen overnight. So if it's a newer club, I would encourage anybody out there to get involved and just check it out. I mean, go there, be cordial with other hobbyists, whether if you know them or not. Know that it's not a scary thing. That you're just another hobbyist. Doesn't matter if you've been in the hobby for a year, or if you've been in it for 40 years. So
that is really good information there. I'm really glad that I asked those questions because, why just stick with one? I mean, even if you're a member to one, might as well go and support others, especially if you're within driving distance. So really, really excited about this talk that we're having here. You guys that are just coming in, we're on live with Jeremy from Sergeant Tank Pets. And right now, the first segment, we're talking about fish clubs. And so far, so good. So I guess another question that I got for you, Jeremy, what is one of your favorite parts of being in a fish club?
The people. I mean, it's basically a family is what it comes down to. Just kind of like through the YouTube community or social media communities as you develop, what I consider lifelong friendships. And it doesn't matter if you're young or old. So again, what drives me is seeing youth, especially younger individuals, getting engaged and getting involved. So the more youth we can get involved, of course, we'll later take things over as our generations continue to, age in time. Obviously, that's just a fact of life. I mean, so seeing the youth, seeing them excited. But I would say if somebody asked me what I enjoy the most, it's the people. I mean, it really is just an awesome environment. I can't speak enough good things about our own club. Very blessed to be with our club. I mean, it's an awesome and great opportunity all around.
Well, that is a great answer. I know that just in the short amount of time that I spent with you in August out in Michigan, I got to meet the vice president of your club, Chris Carpenter, and I could see being in that fish club, going and seeing his fish room, inspired me to get into shell dwelling species. I mean, that guy right there is just a wealth of knowledge, and that would be cool to hang out with guys like that, and like your other guy, I always forget his name, but your other guy that's in the club, you're always telling me stories about him, the guy that possibly could be up in his 70s, but we're not really for sure. But that's another thing is like, excuse me, what people don't understand is, there's all these other people that are in this club, and like Jeremy said, it's a family. So, what is one of the things that family do is, family give, and they give knowledge. They give support, whenever you're having a hard time with something, they can maybe add something to your recipe that you're missing out on. And another thing, Jeremy and I didn't talk about this question, but I'm sure that he'll be humble, whenever we're talking about it. But one thing that Jeremy really has gotten into in the last year for sure is the BAT program, and that is a breeder award program. I guess, Jeremy has, in his last meeting, I believe it was, won some awards, and one of them that I was really proud of, and I think Jeremy would say he is too, is he won Aquarist of the Year for his club. And that's a big honor. But away from that a little bit, could you talk about the BAT program and how excited you are about that and what you've got coming up maybe in this next year?
For sure. I mean, BAP is just something you nail it right on the head. It is, hence that the name there for the Breeders' War Program is just a great opportunity for hobbyists alike to come together, share knowledge and experiences based on different aspects of breeding. And most of the BAP that we have through our club, as well as other clubs, is really a lot of it's focused on good captively bred specimens within home aquaria. And now, not to say that there isn't opportunities there for saltwater as well, but as more individuals in captivity get more knowledgeable and understanding and a grasp of knowledge when it comes to saltwater, it's not to say that we won't start seeing some of the saltwater specimens eventually being bred as well in captivity. But with that being said, it's an incentive program where basically we can dive a little bit if anybody has any specific questions, but it can be a little bit complex. Sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating because of the rules. And now, based on our own club, I will say in comparison to some of the others that I've seen personally, we have some pretty strict criteria, but I definitely enjoy it. It keeps people, keeps you humble, that's for sure, and it keeps you staying engaged. So there's quite a bit that you do have to do in order to be able to qualify at the end of the year in order to obtain an award. So again, it's not just about having a plaque up on the wall. It's really taking heart in the fact that you can breed something, provide it to other hobbyists through your club, and then see them have success with it. And what really, really gets me going is the fact that a lot of the youth, seeing more youth getting excited, individuals in their teens, or even new people to the hobby, that kind of stuff. And that's what really, really excites me. So now, as far as next year, I'm currently active now as far as different species. So when I say that I'm actively working with different specimens of livestock, it's about 65 different active breeding projects. Now that could be a variety of different color morphs based on a specific genus and species of fish or invert, whatever the case might be that I'm working with. But my goal for 2019 is to breed 50 different species. So that doesn't mean a species, again, without diving too much into that right now, is different than like a color morph. And again, there is criteria that you do have to abide by in order to, obtain your points. I pretty much ran and supported part of that along with somebody else when it came to the BAT program here for 2018.
Wow, that is really awesome. And going back to the youth, it's been a few years ago now. My youngest son, he decided that he wanted to quit sports. And I've always been that dad that, my oldest, to this day, she says, I wish that you would have made me do sports. Well, back then she didn't want to do sports, so I don't think sports are a have-to thing. I think good health is a good thing and everything, but I had to find something to keep him busy. And the fish hobby is definitely one thing that has done that. As far as he spawned live bears, all kinds of different live bears. He spawned plecos all on his own and setting these tanks up on his own. He even did some egg scatterers this year. So that is something that really excites me as well. One thing that I thought was cool when I was learning about the BAP program is, Chris kept on saying, I'll be bringing these in for BAP at the next meeting. And, you basically, whenever you bring them in for BAP, you're showing your proof that you spawned them and everything, but you're releasing them to the club to either trade or sell in the swap or what. I guess I'm a little unknowledgeable about that part.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I can't speak on behalf of every club, but I would say overall it's kind of universal in a sense. However, the way that the point system, going back to what I would say, is that I feel based on our club, and I love it because it's more of a challenge this way. And I'm not talking down upon other clubs. I want to make that very, very clear because I can't. There's so many clubs across the states. Be too hard to determine. But the ones I've talked with personally, and I don't want to mention certain markets because, again, this isn't like saying, hey, you need to do it this way, that way. These things have been implemented through these clubs for many, many years, just like with our own club. And you see what works and what doesn't work. So with that being said, and that disclaimer, I guess, out of the way, now when it comes to the BAT program specifically, is you have to, I guess let's kind of walk through a few of the steps for which one would have to do in order to be able to qualify for even one BAT point. They kind of maybe make it a little bit easier to understand. So the prime example I like to use is just like a live bear. So let's say it's a guppy. So you bring in this, let's say this black Moscow guppy. So what you have to do is you have to have at least 6 60-day-old free-swim juveniles, at least 60 days of age, at least 6 of those of that specific fish or that species of fish in order to bring them in. You have to fill out a BAT form, and then somebody like myself through the BOD or the board of directors will go ahead and sign off to confirm, because there has been unfortunate situations where we've had to turn down if somebody's trying to bring a duplicate species or thinking it's another species and really it's a different color morph. So again, it can be a little bit complex there. But again, it's not to be intimidating. These are all things to encourage people to get more involved in the hobby. So with that being said, is you bring it in, so you fill out this form, you go ahead, you have one of us through board of directors sign off on it. Okay, you're good to go. Then what happens from that point through our club is it goes through what we call like a mini auction. So basically, from January until November, and I'm kind of jumping forward here a little bit, and I'll explain why here in a second. So from January until November, concluding for that year, is your BAP opportunity. So once a month, you more or less have an opportunity besides July and December. And I'll explain why here in a second. So basically every month besides July and December is you have an opportunity to go ahead and then put that through one of the auctions. So it has to be a club auction, not a swap, but an auction. So that could be a what we call a not so many auction, and this is kind of an inside joke because all of our auctions are meeting. So we meet on the second Saturday of every month, and then what happens at that point when we bring in guest speakers, at the conclusion of that, we always do what we call the not so many auction, and we could have 50 plus bags, and I kid you not, at one of our club meetings. And it's hit and miss. It just kind of depends what people are bringing in. So you'll go ahead, could be one of our annual auctions, is you can go ahead and then provide it there. So it has to go through an auction. And then the other criteria is you can either do it as a split. And what that means is you can do it as a donate. So you're donating all the proceeds, whatever that auction item yields, is you donate all of those proceeds back to that specific club, or you do it as a split. Like with our club, it's very, very generous. It's a 70%. So what that means is you get 70% as a seller, the one bringing in the auction the item off. The club gets 30%. There's a lot of clubs out there that are 50-50 split. So they get 50, you get 50. If it was me, I would actually say 60-40. So, 60%, to the club, 40% to, or I think I said that backwards. I'm sorry. More to the club, and then less to the seller. Because to me, it's not about making money at these, and that's kind of, I think, one of the mindsets that I try to encourage other folks to get into. Because if you're getting into the program just to try to make money off from it, then I think no matter who it is going in it the wrong way. The mindset should be really focused on the importance of good captively bred gene pools of whatever livestock that is, as well as also getting involved into some of the CARES aspect or the preservation and conservation of certain species. And I know now we're jumping onto a whole different topic. And again, this doesn't happen overnight. I get it. There's probably a lot of information here that people are just like, what does that even mean? We've all been there. I've been there myself. It takes time to get used to. I know some of this information can be a bit, difficult to understand due to the fact, even if you don't even have a local club in your market, then it probably doesn't make much sense at all. So again, really the BAP is there to encourage other people to share their knowledge and share their experiences when it comes to breeding whatever species that is. So hopefully that answered and kind of sum things up for you.
One thing that I would really find enjoyable about the BAP program that I saw in the daily talks that I've had with you is I've got 40 aquariums set up right now, and I saw you taking down and getting rid of fish that you had kept for a long time, not necessarily pets, but, you know, species that you had worked with for a long time, to start making room for other BAP species that you worked on. And I could find something like that actually be an excitement, like it's a refreshment, it's a new thing.
Correct. So I can tell you right now in the 20 long, I can name 5 to 6 different species that you could successfully breed. There's potential 5 to 6 BAP points in a 20 long. So again, it's about maximizing the efficiency of what you have within a given ecosystem. And I think oftentimes people get discouraged thinking that they have to have multiple aquariums in order to be successful, and that's just really not the case. So using that as an example, and done this for, you know, many, many years now, just with different aspects of breeding, is in a 20 long, you could do like a nice Endler, you could do a mystery snail, you could do a ram's horn snail, you could do a pleco, and you could do shrimp. There's 5.
Nice.
So again, it's also the important factor is trying to stay pure to what it is that you're also breeding. And I'm sure we'll probably get to this a little bit more in detail here in a little bit. So I'm probably jumping maybe ahead on that, but yeah, we can discuss it a little bit more. But I always encourage people to ensure whatever lineage it is that you maintain the purity of that lineage, especially if it has a location, that kind of stuff. So again, we're kind of switching gears there, talking about genetics and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, the whole importance of it is to ensure what it is that you're bringing in, because, you know, when you have something that's 60 days old, you really have to confine and trust in the individual that's bringing it in, because even at 60 days, especially let's say it's a rainbow fish, or trying to think of another example, like
a tetra.
They're very, very small. So don't use good judgment and common sense. So there's times where I've waited several months before I bring something in, even though theoretically and technically based on the rules, I could have brought it in at that 60-day mark. But again, I'm not going to do that when the most important thing for me as a hobby is to ensure that other people have success with it. Because if you're bringing something in where they're still having to feed, like, you know, vinegar eels, microworms, that kind of stuff, and it's still super, super small, where you can barely see it in the tank, you know, a lot of people, you know, that may be a turn off, may not be to some, but I know for me, I want to make sure that people have success with it. But my point is you have to be honest in what it is that you're bringing in, know what it is that what you're working with. It really gets you more engaged, because what I always say myself, and this is just my opinion, is you'll learn much more about the hobby when you actually start getting into breeding, and you learn more about behavior, psychology of fish, and there's many different aspects of it rather than just keeping fish. And for me, for the last going on 14 years, has been a true passion of mine, especially the last, you know, 8-9 years specifically. It's just been something that I really try to hone in and learn as much as I can about different aspects of various families of fish.
I would totally agree with that 100%. A lot of my, you know, different species that I work with, you learn so much more about them whenever you're watching their, you know, breeding activities and stuff. And it's got to where some of them I can tell whenever it's time to put a male in there with them if I want to or whatever, you know, and you can get a spawn pretty quick that way, you know, and it's all about, you know, just learning from them. Got one last question on here. I think other than this one, we pretty much touched on everything that I had to bring to the table for questions. But I was talking to someone one time, and they were talking about how fish clubs in their area didn't have much of a interaction with local fish stores. How is your club and your local fish store interaction and stuff? Is there anything that you can elaborate on that?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, we have some phenomenal here in the West Michigan area, some phenomenal fish stores. And more or less back in the earlier mid part of the 70s, is we had one of the clubs, you know, about 45 minutes south of us in another smaller town. And that's kind of where it branched off from. A lot of the members from them more or less wanted to start something up here in the Grand Rapids, Michigan market. So with that being said, tying into now one of our local fish stores, because we do have a few, but one of our local fish store owners, one of the more or less kind of one of the founders, as well as a fellow to our club. So that kind of gives you an idea as far as the support. I mean, they're kind of one of the ones that originated and have been around since the beginning of our specific club and much more before that. So I would say, for the most part, the overall engagement and interaction between our local fish stores and our club is absolutely phenomenal. We are very, very blessed to have such an awesome community of local fish stores in order to support these clubs. I mean, it's just, I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, Grand Valley Aquarium Club, hands down, is just, it's an awesome, awesome club. That's all I can say. And I'm not just being biased because of the fact I'm part of that club. I've seen other clubs, and I've just seen this club, and it's just something that we're still trying to hone in different areas. I mean, you learn different things, especially as times change, social media, that kind of stuff. And that's one of the important factors for me, especially through social media, is why I talk so much about the importance of clubs. You know, if I can use any type of traction that I can, it's more important for me to try to get the awareness out there to folks that at least try it out, because I'm speaking for somebody, and probably why I have such a passion to speak on it, because I didn't check it out for so many years. And, you know, I know if I just kind of regret the fact that I didn't join many years ago when I should have. But again, can't go back and undo it. That I'm just very happy to the fact that, you know, I'm part of it now.
Another thing that I was thinking of was that sounded really appealing to me, making me want to get involved, is you know, at these monthly meetings that you guys have, I know in your club you guys have speakers, which is awesome. I don't know if that's every month, but I know I was talking to Chris about that, and you guys got some good speakers coming up. But I also remember one day talking to you, and we were on a video chat, and you were bagging up a bunch of fish. You guys had some kind of get together, and that goes back to the family aspect of it, but I thought that was pretty cool. So can you talk about like some of the gatherings that you guys have that's away from the normal monthly meeting?
Yeah, so what we have, and again, this can branch off in other clubs as well, but just speaking on our club as well, or specifically with our club, is I can't recall exactly what it was that I was bagging. It could have been for one of our auctions, but we do hold 2 larger annual auctions. I would say hands down, it's the largest in Michigan, besides the one in Detroit. Even that, based on the bag count, we had 1,009 bags come through. So our auction, the last one that we just had back here in the fall, started, you know, promptly 11 o'clock and didn't end. Want to say the last person we checked out was after 7:30 in the evening, and that does not stop. We have like 4 or 5 auctioneers that go up there, and it's just nonstop. It's one bag after the next. So that gives you an idea, put it in perspective, the time that it takes. So with that being said, there's 2 great opportunities there through our specific club, and I know other clubs do this as well, where they hold auctions. So that's a great opportunity, and these are people that come from all around, and that's an open to public auction, so you don't have to be a member in order to come to buy or sell. And then, so that's a great opportunity just to kind of get a feel what it's like. And now if you are a new member, where you've never been a part of it, I would encourage anybody to reach out to somebody if they know somebody through the club. And if you don't want to sign up for it, again, how I try to put it in perspective, literally less than the cost of a movie ticket will pay for your entire family for a whole year. And the amount of information that you will obtain from veteran hobbyists within those clubs that have been in this hobby for 50 plus years will pay for itself in one evening, hands down. I mean, you're not going to find a better opportunity there from a cost standpoint. So I find it hard for anybody to use the excuse that they don't have the funds. You know, it's like maybe you need to not get a Starbucks one time and I'll like pay for your ticket kind of thing, or pay for your membership for your whole family for the whole year. And for most clubs, again, I can't speak on behalf of other ones, but they're very, very reasonable when it comes to price. So I'm trying to just kind of convey that message to not be intimidated, thinking that costs a lot of money. So now tying into other things that we do, we have what we call in July. So going back earlier, and that's something I forgot to shed some light on, is why in July and December, with regard to the Breeders' Award program, is in July we do a picnic. So a picnic is another opportunity where you can just show up. That's where a lot of the funds that we reinvest back into the club, where they just do giveaways. They just give stuff away. And these are not just small things. These are like expensive livestock, things that have been brought in, very expensive dry goods, like full kits, aquarium kits. So again, we try to really give back as a club as a whole, to give an opportunity there. And that's a great opportunity. We usually go to one of the fellows and one of the members, obviously through our club, right out to the lake. So it's a beautiful setting, and legit right on the lake. And oftentimes that's kind of what they've been doing the last several years, is all show up, you kind of just bring a dish to pass, and you just hang out and have a good time. You bring kids out there. There's other activities, and we also do things called like the shop hop. So what a shop hop is basically an opportunity where you sign up, you give people, let's say if it's 3, 4, or 5 month notice, this is where we're going to be going. I facilitated the last one, and it turned out to be a good opportunity. So what we did on the last one is we hit what we call the east side. So we hit the east side of Michigan. So there's a lot of local fish stores in the Detroit, greater Detroit area, I guess you would say, in Michigan. So we hit up, I want to say, 8 different locations. And 2 of those locations were actually locations that were not open to public. So these are non-open to public. These are more wholesale facilities. So again, there's other opportunities there. I'm sure that we'll end up doing another one here in our club for once the board of directors meet here this next month. I'm sure that we'll probably end up discussing as far as doing another shop hop. I'm not sure where the location would be. So that's something that's very common that you'll see with clubs. Another thing is, like, we hosted the American Library Association on a very, very short notice, and it turned out to be a phenomenal thing. From my understanding, I heard nothing but positive feedback, and we literally had like a 4 or 5 month notice. So the board of directors came together and we made it happen. So that's the American Library Association convention, is one of the largest, library conventions in the U.S. So, I mean, that was a great opportunity there for people to get involved, where clubs can put on and possibly host, larger conventions like that, depending on what market they're in. And that kind of opens up more opportunities where you have like room sales. So that kind of goes into a whole nother conversation. So, I mean, you could really just spend a week talking about all the different awesome things that can happen through a club, where it can kind of just branch off from all these different things. So it's not just like you're just showing up to a building or a room and you're just sitting there talking. This is like stuff that happens, beyond that setting. So I don't want people to think, oh yeah, these are boring. We have, you have these guests that come in, they talk and that kind of stuff. So we have an awesome lineup for 2019. You can always go to our website. You can look at whatever club that you're a part of. You can look at their website and see what the itinerary looks like for that year as far as upcoming speakers.
It seems like the one in December that you were talking about, if I remember right, that's the one that sparked my whole conversation on this. Wasn't it kind of like a secret Santa? So you guys were all bagging up fish. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just
So the one in December is the other year where we don't BAP. It ends in November. So maybe what I was doing was bagging up some fish for that. So yes, it is basically bring a bag, get a bag. So if you bring 2 bags, you're basically switching out for 2 bags kind of thing. It's pretty self-explanatory there. So, I mean, you bring a bag, you get a bag. You want to bring something usually that's not like just something that you see all the time. You try to switch it up, bring something in that you're not just going to be able to go to any meeting and pick up. It just kind of brings a little bit more excitement. And then again, going back, just like at the July 4th of July picnic time, is in December is where we reinvest as a club money back into giving away. I mean, they gave away, like, you're talking, I can't give a price, but I'm telling you, it was a few thousand.
Wow.
A retail value on some of this stuff between livestock and dry goods. It was probably the biggest giveaway that we did at a Christmas party. I can't, only being a part of this now for a couple of years and seeing it. But I can tell you the last 2 years by far, I mean, looking at last year was still a great one, but this year they really, really went out. And again, all that money, a lot of these places, going back to the local fish stores, support, they donate as well. So between trying to make it fair to take a good portion of that money, get these, maybe more uncommon species of fish, bringing them in. There's some great livestock that came through, not only from people like myself that were just bringing them in there, but also things that were donated and brought in through some of the local fish stores.
All right. Awesome, Jeremy. That pretty much concludes all the questions I have. So we've been talking for a little bit over 30 minutes. And of course, guys, this is diluted. We could actually talk for a whole day on this kind of stuff because I am just like absorbing it. I'm so attracted to the club thing. I mean, all of these things seem so cool. Like, if you could bring in 2 or 3 bags of fish, and it's not like we don't have tons of it, bring in 2 or 3 bags of fish and then leave with 2 or 3 bags of fish that you don't have. I think that is really, really awesome. But let's go ahead and go to the chat. And again, I'm seeing some comments about being sick. I do have a cold, but it's not a head cold. It's not a stomach cold. It's not even in my lungs. It's just a sore throat with a little bit of a tickle on it. So I really apologize, but I'm really trying. This is live stream 98 for the year, and I don't really have any wiggle room. We're right at the end of the year, and I'm wanting to get 100 in, but this is turning out to be a pretty good one. So we're going to go ahead and go to the chat. If anybody has any questions while we've got this wealth of knowledge on here, let's go ahead and ask anything. Again, like Jeremy has said, he can only really speak to his club, but I feel like if we was to if I was to start going to a club, you don't want to walk in the first club meeting and say, well, Jeremy's club does all these things and that's what we need to start doing. But I would say after you go to a club and you earn some respect, you have some ideas to do things if that club isn't doing them. I mean, I would say that would be something that you don't want to do on the first time you show up to a meeting, though.
Sure.
All right, guys. Anybody have any questions? We do have another segment that we're going to do on this live stream to do with like YouTube creator tips, which it's going to be a broad thing that we'll talk about. But anybody have any questions? I'm not really seeing any pertaining. We got 43 people watching. Jamie McDonald says, you are awesome to have a stream when you are under the weather like this. Thank you. No problem, Jamie. I'm sure it looks a little crazy every once in a while. This is the first time I've went live with a guest on. I've talked about doing it forever. But I noticed every time I would cough, it would change back to me for a second. But
do you mind if I touch base on one question here in the comment
section?
Sure,
go for it, Jeremy.
All right. So Mike with MHound9, great question here. Actually glad that he had brought this up. But as far as recommendations of an all-species club or a specialized club, so hands down, diversification is absolute key. One thing I think that a lot of people know me for, and again, it's not like I'm trying to toot my own horn, but people enjoy coming to my fish room because of the diversity that I have. I don't just solely focus on one specific family of fish. I'm not just a cichlid guy or just a live bear guy or whatever the case might be. Is I have always tried to enjoy many different aspects and branching out and getting to know much more about all the different families of fish that I can, especially within captivity. And you know, yeah, so that is a great question, but hands down, absolutely. I mean, our club is very, very diverse. Again, not only from a not only dealing with plants, whether if that's vegetative, if that's propagation, if that's flowering. I mean, we didn't even talk about the hat program, but same thing, just like with the bat program. So there's hundreds of different varieties and species of plants. So again, that's another opportunity. Yeah, so it's pretty self-explanatory, kind of tying in with the same aspects of certain criteria that you have to follow with the bat program. But hey, if you're a plant person, if you're into that, just know that oftentimes, especially even through our club, that you have the opportunity for, turning in points for, raising up plants. So,
I actually forget about that. That's a good point because, all of us are, into plants. Jeff Chambers has a good question, and I kind of know how to answer this a little bit, but Jeremy can elaborate on it a little bit. He says, does Jeremy ever have club members over to his fish room to hang out and tour around a bit? I know he had the vice president over for a live stream one night right there at his fish room. And then while I was there, Jeremy had reached out to one of the members of the fish club, and they let me come over with Jeremy and tour the fish room. But I guess I'll let Jeremy elaborate if he has anything else to say on that.
So again, I mean, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I've had quite a few people here from the club, and that's something again to kind of make note of. That's another great opportunity. Something that we as a club want to get more back into is touring, because we have a lot of phenomenal fish rooms within our local area, within a very close distance, probably within, I would say, a 15-mile radius, as we have lots of them. So that's something kind of like a shop hop kind of thing, but you go around, you tour, and you visit. That's once a year, twice a year kind of thing. That's something that we used to do, but we need to get back into it. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, it's a great opportunity to have people over, get to know them more. It's one thing at a club, but when you bring somebody into your home, you know how it is. No different than anybody else that you bring into your home, to be more of an intimate setting where you can actually get to know more about that individual, and discuss, other stuff. It doesn't have to just be fish keeping, and these are people, obviously, I call, friends and close friends and kind of stuff like that. So, I mean, these are people that are there if you're in, times of need, to help out. And again, this is, like I said, I just look at it as like a family is what it comes down to. So
exactly. I noticed a question here in the chat from Mr. D's. He says, Jeffro, I have a major issue with high nitrate in my 75. Tried everything but cleaning the substrate. Any suggestions on how to clean it safely, please? Boy, do you have, and Jeremy can probably help out with this too, but do you have any kind of, like, I think it's the pothos plant that I have in all of my tanks. I hear that those really suck the nitrates up. Maybe you've already done something like that, but what would be a solution without, like, a plant sucking up the nitrate, Jeremy?
So instead of looking at, like, what would I kind of look at it a little bit different, is what's causing high nitrate levels. I find oftentimes it's an imbalance of bacterium within that specific ecosystem. So what tells me is that somebody's having high nitrates doesn't always necessarily mean a heavy stock load or overfeeding. There could be an imbalance of the overall nitrification cycle that's happening within that specific ecosystem. And I think what would help is if I knew the numbers.
Right.
Personally. Numbers do not lie, and I tell people that all the time. Don't base it off from what you see with your eyes. If you understand that, a test kit well, oftentimes the numbers, once you start diving in, can tell you a little bit more about what's going on. Another thing that I've noticed before in issues that people have when they have high nitrate levels, oftentimes they're either over filtering, which I find more times than not, or even under filtering, or using dual or multiple filtration methods. So let's say they have a sponge filter with a canister filter or a hang-on back filter. Oftentimes they can be out competing one over the other. So again, there was that almost to the T of what you're saying. This is probably a year and a half ago. Individual is running, I want to say, 3 different forms of filtration, each of which I just mentioned. Told them to eliminate X, Y, and then you would have, success within a week or two, pretty much resolve the issue. So what was happening is one was actually out competing the other, and it wasn't able to maintain the overall nitrogen cycle. So I'll be curious to know if you have any type of nitrites specifically within that as well. Same thing with ammonia. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But
that is a great point that I've never really even thought of on the dual filter situation, because I have that on a few of my tanks. All right, guys. Let's see. Do you see any questions that pop up too, Jeremy?
I did have one here from Brandon with Maple Street Aquatics, so I'm going to try to find that one here. Bear with me just a second. I had it. All right, so Brandon's wondering if I obtain most of my breeding stock from local areas, or do I reach out to other fish suppliers across the country? So yes, both. A lot of my livestock I do get from local people through our club, and as well as if I travel. So the limited amount of times I actually have the opportunity to travel, then I take advantage of that as well. So whether if that's people's fish rooms, if that's other auctions, that kind of stuff. So I always try to keep a balance between supporting. It's very important to also support your local fish stores, maintain them. We need them in the hobby. It's very important to do that. And, you can also go to auctions and that kind of stuff. So
Kevin from KG Cichlids has a good question. He says, Jeremy, what things should you bring with you to a club or be prepared for?
So if it's your first time going to a club, what you're going to want to first do is check out the website. Oftentimes, most of them, unless they're an older club that still hasn't, manifested to the point of actually implementing like a website where you can pay there on demand, like through a website, that option, like a card option kind of thing. So you're going to want to find out what the registration process is to become a member. And then once you become a member, you pay your dues, go ahead and sustain you for, that year, whether if it's an individual or a member. And then usually you get like a little welcome packet to kind of let you know a little bit about the club, that kind of stuff, as well as, other information like an itinerary, a newsletter, which oftentimes gives dates, individuals that write news, articles for the newsletter based on a specific topic within the hobby. That can also be addressed. So there's other opportunities there for you as well. But that would be my first recommendation initially, is to find out what you need to do to become a member. And oftentimes a lot of clubs, like with ours, if you're brand new and let's say you have a buddy there and you show up and you just want to check it out, it's your first time, we're not going to make you pay. That's just our focus is to let you feel for it. Now if you want to come back, obviously common sense is, if you're going to plan on coming back, our hope is to make you like it so much that you just become a member. That's our hope. And there's a lot of perks that go along with it, such as the things I mentioned: Christmas party, shop hops, that kind of stuff. Because that stuff, if you're not a member, it's not going to happen. And that probably goes for most clubs. It's one of the incentives. So, if you want to be able to come to the meetings on a regular basis, if you want the opportunity to go to a Christmas party or the picnic, those are for paid members. So
Maple Street Aquatics brought up a good point. he said he always brings a styrofoam cooler to the monthly auctions for all the fish they buy. That's a really good point. You got to be prepared, I guess.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see here. Or two. Vanessa, his wife, says or two. Yeah, I've got to bring double coolers. That's a good auction if you bring 2 coolers worth of fish home.
Yeah. Do you mind if I address this one here? DPK Carlos here. Another great question with regard to conservation. So yes, conservation is a very important aspect. So we could spend, again, a day talking about that. I, don't want to take up that time. What I would recommend that you guys check out at some point later on is to Google CARES for conservation and go directly to the website, and it outlines exactly what they're about. And CARES is a conservation and preservation program that was implemented for hobbyists to be able to come together in conjunction with a lot of the clubs to be able to obtain either those of which are like on the red list, let's say, so near extinction, basically all extinct in the wild, that kind of stuff, where there's no longer a location for them. So the whole basis, just like any other conservation program, is to have later at some point enough livestock to have reintroductory efforts into a certain locale. And that's a whole, kind of sums it up in a very, very short response. So yes, we do. I would say a lot of clubs out there do. Something for our club specifically that we need to get more active and involved in. And then again, it just opens up more doors and opportunities there to get engaged even more into the breeding of care species.
Awesome. The care species really is something that I want to get into this next year as well. Like, I think it would be an honor to do something like that. It makes you feel like you're giving back too.
Yep.
All right, let's go. I feel like we can take some more questions if anybody has any. And if you see any, Jeremy, just speak up.
Sure.
Let's see here. I shall not repeat it.
So John Becker here, yes, another great point is, yes, we also have relationships there going back to local fish stores. He's just making mention of the fact that oftentimes when you're part of a club, you can also get perks such as certain discounts through your local fish stores, and that's absolutely correct. I can't speak on behalf of everybody, but that is accurate within our market. So
that is really awesome, actually.
And sometimes that right there alone, if you're talking 10%, whatever it is, hypothetically, depending on what you're getting, that right there will pay for your whole membership for the entire year, hands down.
Right.
So.
Maple Street Aquatics asks if you guys keep any CARES fish currently. I don't. I can't remember if you do it all, Jeremy, or not.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have Goodeids, which a lot of those, most of those are on the CARES list. I'm not sure about the Cetacranus urbani. That may be on the CARES list, but believe it or not, a lot of things, more than what people realize, may be on the CARES list. So it's not a good thing. It really isn't. Rather, if it's doesn't necessarily have to. I mean, once it's on the CARES, I mean, it doesn't mean that these things, even if they're near extinction or not, it just really enhances the importance of people realizing that what's happening in the ecosystem overall within the world and these different regions, that it's important that we put the amount of care within that ecosystem to ensure that we're not wiping out, these livestock. It's important. I mean, that should be a concern of everybody as a hobbyist.
Dan Slee has a good question in regards to the BAT program. Do they usually include different types of inverts?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So inverts are all part of the BAT program.
Right.
So shrimp, snails, crayfish, that kind of stuff. Yep.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm really excited about that. Lisa from KG Tropical says, I don't have any questions, but just wanted to say nice live stream and great info from Jeremy.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's see. White clouds are on the CARES list. That surprised me, but makes sense because they're not in the wild anymore.
Yep.
Pam is given a weather update. I noticed her door is frozen shut and it is supposed to drop down to 10 below tonight. She's going to be cuddling with Buddy tonight. Okay, let's see here. I think I've seen just about all the questions that I can think of, which probably, if you're ready, Jeremy, we could go ahead and go into the
Do you mind if
segment.
I take just a quick 5 just to get up and stretch?
Go for it.
And then you go ahead and you do your thing, and I'll be right back.
Sounds good. I wanted to cough so much louder than what I was, but every time I coughed, I looked out of the corner of my eye and I could see the camera coming back to me. John Bedker asks, why are the L46 zebras not on the CARES list? That is a mystery, isn't it? I really am wanting to get involved in your club now, John. It's got me excited. Lisa, I really haven't done anything for my cop except for Grizzly Wintergreen Long Cut and Bush Lattes. That's all I've done for my cough. But I've got some NyQuil in there. I just don't want to take it. I do have something that's like Robitussin, but right now it's just a tickle. Let's see here. Did you know Candy Overalls only has 10 subs to get to 300? I'm like, I think I was like 40 subs from 1,700 I noticed earlier today. So I thought that was pretty cool. Throw some tussin on it. Yeah. Shallow Water says, my hair grass is doing so well with white clouds. That's awesome. John says, second Thursday in January is where the auction was. I really need to start. I just need to. And yours isn't a bad drive. I could probably even tie it in with work or something, you know. Dan Lee says 1660 now. Jeffro moving on up. Congrats. Thanks a lot, Dan. Yep, like 40 away from 1,700. So it's kind of interesting to know because the last few days it's went kind of quick. The last few days, sometimes that last 30 especially kind of goes fast. It'd be kind of interesting to know. We've got what, 3 more days if I do a 4-hour long live stream at the end of the month there. Yeah, Tampa Tom, I saw your question about the 120 acrylic and glass, and I didn't know how to answer that one. It's been so many years. I bought my 125 years ago, brand new, but I paid like $1,300 for it, and it was like it had the glass tops, and it had the lights, and it had the stand and everything. Let's see here. I have some stuff I want to ship, but I will wait until at least gets back up into the 30s. Yeah, definitely. Jamie McDonald says, I'm glad I subbed when I did. I enjoy your streams and vids. Well, thank you very much, Jamie. All righty. All right. So you back?
I am back.
All right. So the second segment that I wanted to talk about tonight, been hearing a lot of YouTube creators on the platform talking, the last few weeks about, some different questions and concerns moving into 2019. And, I've been the same way. Like I said, today is my tonight's my 98th live stream of the year, and you know, I listen to everyone out there, but I usually come to my own conclusions and stuff. But the first thing I want to talk about is live streams. You know, can they hurt your channel? Can they help your channel? You know, what I see from some people, and they've got, you know, really good points, is, you know, your live stream is good, you know, for some views and for some channel engagement. But after that live stream's over, it's not like a good edited video where it's going to keep on getting views a year from now. And I can believe that statement because, you know, I've got a couple of subscribers that are new to the channel that go back and watch a few of my old live streams, but it's not like YouTube is really pushing that live stream. And, you know, it's not like a good evergreen video. So what are your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
Now, with live streams specifically, gosh, I probably have done over 250 live streams. I mean, that's kind of, for me personally, where I built it off from. And when I started out, it was just enjoying, you know, a lot of times it wasn't really necessarily topic based. So I guess if we just focus on live streams, for instance, it has its pros and cons. I think sometimes it's a misconception that you can't grow a channel off from live streams as far as engagement, but it's how it's done. So as times change and as people's interest in different various topics. So obviously as a content creator, oftentimes you're not just focused, you know, on one specific demographic or one specific niche. Our hope is to try to bring in other individuals that may not even be aware of what fish keeping is. Maybe they're into reptiles, maybe they're into another hobby. It could be a number of different things. And if they're landing on your live stream for the very first time, you want to make sure that it's presented in the right manner and that you're professional, just like you would, you know, if you're interviewing somebody or if you're the interviewee for a job position. That's how I would look at it. So you want to make sure that you dress appropriately. You want to make sure that the backgrounds are appropriate. So there is factors there that go into the right image and the right presentation. Again, you want to always set the first tone and the first example, just like you would for a job interview. You don't want to show up to a job interview unprepared. So being prepared, having a topic base is, I feel, and what I've seen just through analytics personally, when I've worked with and I've seen with not only my channel but others, it can have its ups and downs. So one thing that I started doing is, if you want to base your channel off from live streams, kind of mentioned some of those things there, would be not only for topic based, but you can also always go back and re-upload. And what you can do, and what I've done and what I've noticed more traction by doing so, is, for instance, in this live stream, using it as an example, since we talked about multiple different topics. Now, let's say you wanted to create a 10-minute video, 8-minute video, to have that hook initially so people know what it is. So you can basically edit it through your editing program. You download it, MP4 file, right through your Creator Studio. So I know for some, this may not make sense, but if you're a content creator, I think you'd be tracking with me. So if you go into your video manager and you do the drop down, you go ahead and download it into an MP4. You can transfer that file over to whatever editing software that you're utilizing, and now you can edit it the way that you wish. And that's what I did for a long time. There's other creators out there, not only in the niche of fish keeping, but especially outside of the niche, that also have done that. So I've tested that, and it kind of can come and go. But if you ask me my honest opinion, having a produced, edited video to go ahead and publish and upload, if that's going to gain more traction over a live stream, I would have to concede to the later of that and say that the produced videos is going to be better for you. And a lot of that is really when you're dealing with an artificial or an AI type of like intelligence system, such as YouTube, being probably the largest search engine ever, you know, one of the largest, you have to look at it that way. So dealing kind of from that standpoint and putting it in that perspective of how you're actually going about getting the information out there, how you're ranking your videos. And, you know, when I've talked with individuals before, a lot of times they look at views. So it kind of depends on what you're looking at when it comes to the standpoint of views, or are you looking at from a monetary standpoint? Because I find it hard to believe when people outright say that I'm not in it for the money don't matter. You know, I think at one point or another, we probably have all said, hey, it's not just about the money. But again, you have to be able to sustain and recoup a lot of those costs back into it. And I kind of jumping from place, you know, taking different rabbit trails here. But yeah, I mean, you have to understand YouTube, the back end of it. It can be quite complex. There's definitely things that I don't agree with that actually go against, you know, terms of use and abiding by the policies that are in place. But there's many different tools out there that people can utilize in order to get educated based on if you're really serious about YouTube. I will say people coming into YouTube now is going to be more challenging due to the fact that, you know, YouTube is a saturated market. I'm not saying that in a negative. I'm just trying to point out some of the realities of it. No matter what niche it is, if you're a vlogger, if you're into fish keeping, if you're into do-it-yourself projects, there's a number of different stuff. So you always want to try to perform to the best. If you're a gamer, you know, you want to, if you look at some of the gaming channels, I'm not a gamer, so I can't speak on behalf of that, but if you look at some of the gaming channels, make sure that you stand out. I think good, healthy competition is benefit, but what I've seen, you know, in certain niches and certain communities, if you work together and you go about it the right way, you can ultimately help each other in the end. So
awesome. That's one thing that I am setting as a goal. And I know this is a tough subject to talk about because there's so many analytics out there, but I am making it a personal goal to really dive in and try to learn more about the analytics so that I can start picking apart different things, because I think you said it best the other day, and I can't really get the exact wording, but and maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was someone else, but basically it's like showing up to a job without your tools, you know.
Yeah, I was mentioning it to you.
Was that you? Was that you?
Yeah.
And you know, that made me feel really dumb. And it, not to say that you made me feel dumb, it was the reality of what you said and how true that is really made me feel dumb. Here I've been doing YouTube hardcore this whole last year, and every time I talk to you about something, you always bring it up. And when I say something about views on this channel, you're like, what's your such and such, and what's your, and I'm like, I don't know. You know, but it really is like showing up to a job without your tools, and those are your tools. Now they are in depth, and we're not going to be able to dive into all of them, but one of them that I've been looking at here lately, and I got a question about, hang on a second, my computer is got a pop-up coming up here. All right. One of them that I have a question about is your average viewer. Is it viewer rate or viewer percentage? What is that? What's that one?
So what you're talking about is the one that you just recently, your Creator Studio through your, either if you're on an Android or an iPhone app. So it's a great opportunity, but again, I wouldn't just solely focus on those analytics. You really want to dive into your Creator Studio through your PC or whatever type of desktop that you're utilizing. I mean, going through that, there is loopholes around it. Theoretically, you could pull up, you know, if let's say you're on the Android, you could theoretically go through Google and pull it up in a browser there and go right to the normal, you know, site page that you would have on a desktop and make changes that way and view things a little bit differently. But without getting into all of that, between your subscriber to non-subscriber ratio, so let's say you're at a 50-50. So basically what that's showing is your traffic flow based on people that are watching versus people that are actually subscribing. But of course, it goes much more into that. You just don't want to focus on those numbers. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but numbers, again, don't lie. The analytics are what's going to tell you what's working, what's not working, and where you need to go in to make some of those necessary changes. And again, this is something, you know, if you are serious about it, you have to treat it like a job. I tell people, just as a disclaimer for myself, I understand YouTube. But I studied it now. That's all I've done for the last year and a half. That's all I've been listening to and consuming myself with. Maybe someday I will put more time into my own personal channel. But with that being said, it makes sense to me now. I was there. You know, I've had people tear apart my channel in a good way. You know, I took in the constructive criticism. I wasn't doing the basics. Wasn't doing anything that I was supposed to be doing. There's still things on my own channel that, you know, would sound, I understand what I need to do to make a change. It's just, like I said, this is purely a hobby for me. It's just something I enjoy to do. But if anybody wants to get into it and take it serious, you have to look at it like a job or a business. You can't go in 50%. You have to give it 100%. Just like you made note of, you know, I try to use different analogies. But, you know, showing up to a job without the appropriate tools or just one tool, you know, you have to realize that there's multiple tools there for you available. There's a Creator Academy that you can go through on YouTube, which is a, you know, free service for you. And, you know, there's many different areas. There's a lot of phenomenal content creators out there that are specifically geared towards individuals to help them grow through YouTube.
All right. So, for instance, this one where it's basically the analytic is telling you how long people are watching your videos for. A lot of creators look at that one. I think that one's the average view rate or something like that. If you see, like right now, I think mine is somewhere around 12%, somewhere around in there, or 12 minutes or whatever it is, the 12 number. If you see that, should you start editing your videos to be kind of around that number? So instead of doing an 8-minute video, I might need to do it at a 12-minute video instead.
So of course, retention is very important. Now, the more retention you have on your video is obviously better. I mean, really, it comes down to you know, watch time retention versus, in all honesty, I mean, from if you ask them person A, the person B, the person C, they're all going to give you a different response. And I think it really just comes down to, oftentimes, again, looking at it from a business standpoint, how you would approach it, and you yourself as a viewer, how you perceive when you actually consume and watch content yourself. So you always want to take those factors in. So there's a lot that goes into aspects of retention. Why are people dropping off? I mean, that would take 2 hours just to go in and figure out, okay, you would have to look at your analytics, look at different areas, figure out actually why they're dropping off. Is there something that you're doing personally that just irritates somebody? But for me, you know, to try to get your average view retention up as high as you can, it's important. You know, that tells you people that aren't just showing up and clicking on a video and leaving. So it's very important in order for you to be able to perform better in overall in the algorithm. I mean, at one point, you know, for myself, just speaking on my own channel, I was showing up all the time and suggested. And a lot of that goes back to the fact that the reality of it is way back before I even started putting out content on YouTube, is I was already branding myself. And what I mean by branding myself is I showed up just like everybody here is in chat. I did that for a couple of years, just showing up. I was moderating. I was just showing up, being active, getting to know other people. And then my name would stand out. And Sergeant Tank is a name that I just knew would stand out. It's going to click. It's going to stick. It's something else that nobody else has. So you want to be careful too. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, from your name, you know, when people are landing on there while they're watching your content. You don't want to be clickbaity, because if you end up, you know, misleading somebody. I know for me, if I go to a channel and somebody said, you know, it's straight out clickbait, you know, clickbait, there's good clickbait and there's bad clickbait, but I'm talking specifically about bad clickbait. So if you don't get right into it and have that hook and initially to get somebody engaged right away, you know, one thing I can tell a lot of content creators, if you just try to test, if you're noticing a lot of dip, try to get rid of your intros completely. Get right into it. You know, have that hook instantly. So let's say you're titling it how to set up a guppy aquarium. Don't spend 25, 45 seconds going in who you are, what you do. People don't care about that. They want to see what it is that you're setting up. And now if I showed up to that hypothetically, and let's say now I know from me, my attention span, the reality of it is, if you don't hook me in the first 4 seconds, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go to another video. And I would say between 4 and 8 seconds, if you don't instantly catch somebody's attention to keep them engaged, they're going to leave. So there's a lot of importance that goes with it. And people, and again, I'm not talking about people that's showing up all the time. So you want to look at other individuals, your non-subscribers too, of why, you know, are they just showing up here and there, and that's fine. Maybe that's why they're not subscribing. But you just don't want people to subscribe, because that's going to hurt you in the long term. That's not going to help you there's different analogies I can use for that, but I don't want to go on that rant. Yeah, so I mean, it's important to make sure that you put the best that you can into every video. And I always tease myself, do opposite of what I'm doing. Do as I say, not as I do. Because I know what it is to perform, and what at this point what it would take. Again, yeah. So
yeah, when you and I were having one of our private conversations about talking about the new year and things that I can do and stuff, and you brought up the get rid of intro thing, inside I was going, oh, my intro. But at the same time, you came back with another thing that just totally made sense to me. We're looking for new subscribers for this next year, because I'm wanting to grow. You know, I've got another new goal for this next year that's, you know, larger. You know, I'm going to have to get 3 times the amount of subs that I've got right now to get to that goal. And that right there made total sense to me. Like,
not to interrupt you, but I think, and it's not to put you on the spot, but since we're talking about it, I think it was one of those things. Again, I just want to clarify, you know, I hope that it wasn't like coming off the wrong way, but I think it was one of those conversations that you and I had with regard to kind of where your channel, you know, how much time you put into it and where it's at, kind of thing. And that, again, I just want to, like, don't be discouraged from it. Don't focus on the numbers. You know, for my channel, I know the amount of hours and time that I put into my own channel. So take it from somebody that I legit put in hours and time. I mean, money, lots of money into my own channel, whether if it shows through the content or not. And again, if I just was looking at numbers, I would have gave up a long time ago. I would have got discouraged a long time ago. What I stopped focusing on was the numbers. I completely stopped. As long as my channel is growing, be content with it. Just know you're going to continue to learn. It's going to get more fluent for you. Any one of us that has put out any, you know, any type of content, you know, at this point, and I did remove a lot of those videos, and I don't want to get into all of that, but I just knew it was doing more harm and damage to the channel than good. So at this point, I know at one point I got the badge of over 500 videos, and that was in a very short period of time. I was just producing content, but the content was, it wasn't put together. It wasn't thought out. You know what I'm saying? It was just, it was lacking the importance of what it is I was trying to convey. You know, And you want to make sure that you're really presenting the material in an appropriate manner. Kind of look at it like if you're going to go and present this to, let's say you had 100 subscribers, and now try to go perform, or not perform, but try to present that in front of 100 people in an auditorium. Are you going to show up with that video and present that exact same content to those 100 people in the auditorium as you would through that video? So that's what I had to get in my mind. And if I look back at some of my first videos, they sucked. My first 100 videos, they were horrible. You know, it's just like, produce content. Don't worry about the numbers. Just pick up your camera and start recording if that's on your phone. Get used to on-screen presence. Get used to talking, trying to convey the message, trying to get rid of ums and ahs. And it just comes with experience, being comfortable with it. Don't be nervous with it. Just know that they're not going to be good. You know, unless you have a production background and that's what you've done your whole life, then that's different. But, you know, for anybody that's just new, just know it takes time. And don't focus on your numbers. Just know in time that they will come. So
I have to edit a lot of ums and ahs out of it. Every time I edit, I'm busy doing that. I think of some of the analytics will help me, like you said, don't let it consume you, because it will consume you to drive you crazy, yada, yada, yada. But I think some analytics would help me instead of thinking so hard on what to do about an issue that I've got with my channel, where maybe an analytic would have helped me figure it out. And that kind of brings me to another thing that we barely touched on just a little bit ago. And I'm really bad about it. It's in my language when I'm talking about my YouTube channel. It's in my goals. It's one of my main goals. When you're growing your channel, how do you grow your channel? But I guess I'm going to cut to the chase here. And how important do you think that subscriber count really is?
So subscriber count to me is, I'm still, just from being around on YouTube for quite some time without even putting out any content officially, any video content, but just seeing how things have changed. Of course, subscribers essentially is going to bring in the long term, the more subscribers you have, theoretically, the more viewership you're going to have overall. But I think you and I were talking with regard to a video, and it was a point I was trying to make in a constructive way. Just because one has a higher video view doesn't necessarily mean that it's yielding from a monetary standpoint a better engagement. So one video has 30,000 plus views, the other one has 8,000 views. One, the smaller one is outperforming from a monetary point of view better. And again, I know that's not directly, but I will tie in here in a second answering your question. So that has to do with your overall like your CPMs and so forth. So different countries offer different amounts. Basically, let's say per 1,000 views, you're averaging, hypothetically, just for easy math, let's say $5 through ads and so forth, if it's a monetized video, per 1,000 views. So you can do the math. And that is just a very, very broad and very vague. It's not a direct, that can always change. So again, going to your analytics, understanding what countries are performing more, that kind of thing, can yield a higher CPM over another. And now, as far as subscribers, for me, I would rather have the views and the retention. I don't want people to just subscribe to my channel and never come back. The most important thing to me is to build community, and community engagement is very important. So kind of noting on that, there's a lot of things that people do behind the scenes that are not helping their channel. That I can tell you, that I can just say with the utmost certainty that there's certain things that people try to find loopholes in order to gain more traction. And in the long term, it's going to hurt you, whether that's short term or long term. And so just solely focusing on subscribers, of course, there's not a content creator out there, and I'll be the first one to admit it, that we don't look at our subscriber count. You know, if you lose subscribers, especially if they go through like a YouTube purge or whatever you want to call it, it's a good thing. Don't look at it as a bad thing. There's a lot of spam accounts out there, inactive accounts. People are no longer active. You don't want that because it's not helping you as a content creator. I can promise you that. And again, take it from somebody, myself, like I said, at one point I had over 500 videos, and that was done in less than a year and a half.
Wow. 500
videos in a year and a half. I was hardcore driving home. I think most people that have been around in the community know me long enough because I was hanging out. I was doing these collaborations. I started opposite. I was getting to know people. And that wasn't about views for me. It was just getting to know people to hopefully turn into a friendship. You know, that's just for me. I enjoy hanging out with other fish nerds. It wasn't about, you know, viewer and subscriber. I was never looking at any of that stuff ever. You know, I had a lot of people give me a hard time before about doing live streams and that kind of stuff. But you see where things are at now with live streams. Yeah. You know, and again, I listen to the masses. Well, I shouldn't say the masses, but I'm just, again, telling you from personal experience, don't let that noise, whatever it is, there discourage you. Stay focused on what it is. Stay true to yourself. You know deep down who you are as an individual, what your strengths, what your weaknesses are. You know, it's always a good idea to improve, you know, of course, on your weaknesses, but also take advantage of your strengths. Don't forget those either. So know what it is that you're good at doing. And, you know, that's what's enjoyable about the niche, especially more of an educational niche, is that no matter what the content is that you're putting out, you know, there's always a different perspective that you can offer. And yeah, so I don't know if that directly answered the question or not, but it can get a bit touchy when you start talking about views and subscribers and that kind of stuff. And, you know, I just always want to make it very clear. I get it. You know, if I looked at what I know now with YouTube and what I would have put in, I know that things would be different. I can just almost promise you that. I'm confident in that. I have seen other channels that have grown and have surpassed. And again, that doesn't discourage me. I'm usually always there in other people's corner. That's just the way my whole life has always been. You know, I always try to cheer and you know, cheer other people on. You know, when it's my time personally, I really want to go and start diving in and doing things differently, then I will. But I just enjoy it, I guess what I'm trying to say. So ignore all the other nonsense I was saying. Just enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that is great. I don't really have anything else written down on that subject, really. Can you think of anything that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about in regards to, you know, YouTube creators and stuff?
I mean, if there's any questions anybody has in chat, I mean, you know, I always enjoy, you know, kind of piggybacking off from if somebody else has something that they want to make note of. So, I mean, if there is anything in specific, you know, I can always try to do my best to shed some light, just on my own. All I can share is my own personal experiences. It's all I can share.
Exactly.
You know, like I said, the most important thing is if you want to take it serious, all the things that I mentioned, to me, it's just common sense is really what it comes down to. Not overthink it. You know, there's so many tools there for you right here on the platform for what you're trying to create on. I see oftentimes where people get discouraged, and you see this a lot, you know, with more of the educational niche based on growth. And one thing I can say, I guess kind of going off from that, and, you know, it's not really trying to like tickle somebody's ears or anything like that and try to like, you know, tell you what you need to hear. So I'm kind of adding that as a disclaimer, but be careful in what I would classify as a cult, and I'm being very, very clear here. What I mean by cult is a cult initiative, a cult following. So technology, one thing and this is just Jeremy talking from the heart, still being a human being. Don't forget the one-on-one interaction. And that's what I can say about this community is I really, truly feel in that I'm blessed to be a part of the fish community in general is the fact that there's still that human-to-human interaction. There's still opportunities for people to engage. And that's what I enjoy in general. Going back to what we were talking about in the first segment with the fish clubs, again, don't get wrapped up into the social media, into the cult perspective. I get it. I wasn't born yesterday. I understand the basis, but I don't believe in it because I'm still, call me old school. I don't care. At the end of the day, it's like, I just know for my own kids, they don't have phones. I have a teenager. They don't have a phone. They minimally will even be engaged in technology as it is. There's too much of that lost of perspective to have like a, it drives me crazy if I'm trying to reach out. And that's what I really enjoy. Like with you and I, for instance, Jeff, I mean, in our, we reach out like this, like we're talking on the phone. It's not like we're just sitting here texting all day long, right. And that's kind of my point that kind of tie into what we were talking about is don't lose the human interaction in that perspective. And that's more of just me, kind of giving a pep talk, but, I try not to go into that. At the end of the day, you pick and choose. It's your prerogative. But I've been there. I've seen it. I know how you can fall into that. But there's very, very large, much outside of the fish keeping niche that I will not mention. But that base it, even my entire background upbringing has been business. I mean, my uncle, before he passed away this past year, ran a successful business for over 45 years, and I worked for him. So I know what business is. I know what small mom and pop shops is. Maybe that's why I'm more biased towards that, because I get it, where you have to incorporate, technology. But again, I know what it's like to grow up and be a part of and help manage and work with, like a mom and pop type of location. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit more biased with it. It just discourages me as an individual, as a human being, the fact that nobody can handle just having a conversation anymore or meet up for a cup of coffee. It's like we're losing so much because of social media with that. My goal would be, and my hope would be, and continue to see that through utilizing YouTube, through the fish keeping niche, is to continue to evolve in that sense, to have more opportunities where people can meet up in person. Which are great events that are coming up in 2019 where people do have the opportunity to meet up, to engage. And again, not going back to what your subscriber count is. Don't look at the numbers. Right. I can promise you when you're showing up to those events, they're not paying attention to, what subscriber count you is, and that kind of thing. I one of the missions that I had was learning people by first name basis. I can tell you a lot of different people just learning through YouTube, not only first and last name, but even some of them where they live. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know how many other people can say that, but it's like, okay, this is John Doe's channel kind of thing. Like, never see that, once they show up, it's like, I don't have any idea who that person is. That's where I wanted to kind of break that trend of like, hey, I want to know more about this person. Who is this person?
Right.
So,
I definitely totally agree with you. I'm kind of lucky in my job that we don't have a whole lot of texting. I mean, there's some emailing back and forth, but being on the road all day long, can't really do a whole lot of texting and stuff. So that, the video chats that we do are really a big help. Like, we've got a group that we've got together, and, on a day whenever this one's down, we can hopefully bring that one up. And I think it's a really good thing as well. But yeah, I just find myself all the time worried about my subscriber count. You know, it's like the most biggest thing that I'm worried about, you know.
Yeah.
And like what you said earlier, just but at least that was the only analytic I was really paying attention to, you know. Like you said earlier, just don't worry about it so much.
There was a time where I wanted to just make a point, completely anonymous, start a whole new channel. And obviously I'm completely letting the cat out of the bag, for lack of better terms, if that was ever my focus.
Right.
But I was going to do it completely under the radar to make a point that I could grow a channel from 0 to over 50,000 subscribers in 1 year, just to make a point. And it would go exactly against every single thing that I just said.
Right.
I'm going to leave that and let that just kind of sink in to maybe some.
Right.
So,
are we buffering?
I'm not sure. I don't even have that screen up.
Gotcha. Priscilla MK Art says, just turn the sub count, I'm not laughing, off, and you don't have to worry about it. Carlos says the one-on-one interactions makes the deepest impact in people's lives, and it's what keep that passion of fish keeping. And that kind of goes back to one of the other questions that I didn't really bring up. You know, I started out February 24th, I think was my first live stream this year. And I started out with just one, and it was just smooth sailing. Then my subscribers started asking for more. So I added another day in the week. And then, you know, a couple of months went by and I added another. And I never really complained or found myself overwhelmed, with doing 3 a week. But I think the thing that ultimately made me make my decision to do less, so I've made the decision to go once a week starting at the first of the year, was that maybe I could use the time that I was doing on the other live streams for more constructive stuff to do with my channel. You know, that'd give me 2 more nights to work on my channel. Did I really need to go those other 2 nights? I think I grew about the same as what I did before. I've continued to grow. I didn't grow faster when I added 2. My view count did go up a little bit, but it's because there was more, you know, uploads. You know, there was like 8 more uploads a month, you know. But yeah, what is your opinion on multiple live streams a week? I guess my scenario that I had, you know, do you think my one that I've got planned out for this upcoming year versus how I've been doing it hardcore?
As we're talking earlier on, if it's done appropriately, and if that is, again, it's about being consistent is the most important thing. So you don't want to deviate away from why I've always maintained live streams. That's where my channel started. I mean, there's a few folks I see in here that have been around. I mean, for instance, and I'm picking on Priscilla in a good way. Priscilla around, and I have been around in the community for a long time, and got to know more. Beginning part of 2017, just got to know more. But again, you know people through the community by doing exactly what we're doing now, by engaging, by getting involved in chat, that kind of stuff. And it's not like, hey, check out my channel, sub to my channel, that's not at all what I'm saying. Just show up, just be there, support other folks, you know. And it's always important for me is when I'm putting out content, just don't show up to show up. I hope that you can actually take something away from it. You know, I think that's the hope for most content creators, depending on what it is that they're focused on, specifically if it is an educational niche. Now, if you're a vlogging channel, then that may be a different story. But, you know, with live streaming, you know, I can tell you, when you have 50, 60, 70 people, that's a very good engagement. based on if we look at subscriber to people showing up. So that tells me people like Jeffro. And I remember telling you this, I think, not too long ago, is, you know, and I encourage anybody to do that, is people are showing up because first and foremost, they're showing up on a live stream. They want to know who you are. Now, when you're producing a video, it's not, I would look at it a little bit differently. When you're producing a video, again, going back to that kind of that analogy that I was sharing a little bit earlier on, do you have 100 subscribers? If you have 1,000 subscribers, 100,000. Your produced videos should always be at the most optimal level to your capability as you continue to grow and to learn editing software, thumbnails, the design aspects that go around it, how you present yourself. You know, you're always going to grow. You're always going to find out and learn more. We all do it no matter where you're at. It's always somebody's focus. And again, I just always try to encourage people to not focus on just solely on sub count. Of course, that tells you where things are going. I get it, you know, and but if you just always focus on sub count, that doesn't mean anything when it comes to if you're legitimately trying to grow on YouTube. And again, there's other things that I have that, you know, we could talk about, but again, I know it would take up quite a bit of time. So
Priscilla has a pretty good question here that I'm kind of interested to see what you think of. She says, I see a lot of larger channels making an extra channel just for live streams. What are your thoughts on that?
So now, as far as now, I think the way I'm kind of interpreting that question is now starting another channel is now, what is the rule of thumb before you should start a secondary channel? Again, going back to consistency based on what it is. So you always want to focus, and that was the issue on my channel, is I focus on a lot of different areas, a lot. I'm not just focusing on, and again, I'm just using this as an example, not knocking on anybody that creates any type of content, but how to set up a 10-gallon aquarium, how to set up a 55. Let's go to Petco. Let's get the best deal. You know, what is the best 55? I'm here legit as a hobbyist to heart, trying to educate people on the aspects of the hobby is what it is. You know, I'm a purist. I'm a hobbyist. I've been in the hobby since 1990. So to me, it's like, that is the information. I want to get more people on the bandwagon who I feel should be putting out content. If we're really focused on the greater good of the hobby, are individuals that have been individuals that we've all looked up to, a lot of us in the hobby that have been around it for 50, 60, 70 years. You know, those are individuals that should be putting out the content. And there's individuals out there, but, you know, it's like, you know, and that's kind of the focus where I know for me to bring on and bring some insight, because I always want to stay true to what it is as a channel. You're not going to see any content ever on my channel. You can mark my words and mark it in time to where it's just making content to produce content. My biggest importance is to get information and get people out there that maybe other people aren't aware of, that I feel are of value to the hobby as a whole. So now creating a live stream, a secondary channel, it could backfire on you, but if you have a big enough channel, now it kind of really depends. I mean, that there's so many variables. I mean, you could have a channel that has 100,000 subscribers and one that has 10,000 subscribers. And if you're solely focusing on, that's where people, I think, really have a major misconception. They think just because this person has so many subscribers, if we're really looking at it from a business standpoint, I'm just getting real at this point, you know, if you're really focusing on a YouTube channel from a business standpoint, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody that has 100,000 subscribers is making more from a monetary point of view or profitability standpoint than somebody that has 10,000. I mean, there's many creators out there that focus on marketing. That's all that they built their entire reputations on. Marketing and advertising, and that's what they went to, you know, school for. That's what they lived. That's what they worked. Is you have to put the, you know, your time into it. Just like if you went to a college and you did your studies and you went through your prerequisite courses, you know, that's, yeah, I try to get people in a different mindset. It takes time. And, you know, if you don't put the time into it, I can tell you a well-produced video from most content creators, and I'm just going off from my opinion, a well-produced video, a 12, 15-minute video is going to take you, especially when you're starting out, sometimes 2 weeks to prepare. And it could take a whole nother week in order to, between preparation. So let's say between 2 and 3 weeks, sometimes a month to prepare just for a 10 or 12-minute video. And once you get fluent enough and you get good enough at it, you're kind of a one-take kind of guy. And people used to give me a hard time where I was just like kind of a one-take, like boom, boom, boom. You know, I think when most people have watched me in the past, like, you know, this, I try to, you know, it's different for me when people ask me the question, and I think most people that know me are probably going to laugh, excuse me, that I can talk. My entire life, I mean, that's what I used to do in my old profession. I used to train large groups of people. So for me, getting in front of, you know, 30, 40, 50 people wasn't a big deal. And solely working with, you know, groups of 6 and 10, you know, and so I think it kind of just depends on your experience, where that kind of stuff goes. So it's really hard to say, should you create a channel for live streaming? Shouldn't you? You definitely see a trend with it, depending on what the niche is, especially with gaming channels. I know it's a big one. And again, there's other platforms out there too. And it doesn't just have to be YouTube. So just because, hey, this isn't performing here, again, there's other avenues out there that may be more geared towards that specific niche, if that makes sense. So don't just get discouraged. You know, if you want to go and create content, and I think it really, really shows. You know, if you only spend 5 or 10 minutes, it's going to show. I can promise you that. You know, and yeah, so.
Awesome. Anyone here keep plecos? BB23, that's a given. That's a given. Anybody have any questions? We go another 15 minutes or so. We will have been going live for 2 hours. I heard a rumor that Jeffro has a couple. Well, I missed what a couple of what, Punchy? Looks like everybody's just goofing off in the chat. Honeybee says, I love great information. Fish hobby. You always seem to learn. Also, a lot of people can give bad advice. Yep. That's one thing that I think that kind of helped me gain Jeremy's trust is if I'm not knowledgeable about it, I defer. I try to find someone, you know, it kind of helps me also that I usually have a lot of people here. If it's something that I haven't kept, you know, I won't answer unless I know, truthfully, something, you know, that that I've actually seen that's actually true, you know.
So they kind of piggyback off from that. One example, and again, you know, these are channels that are 50, 60,000 plus subscribers that I've, you know, and I'm not going to say it's part of any specific niche, but just mentioning basic things tells me these are individuals that started back before the changes happened, you know, through the algorithm changes and overall on YouTube. People have been around, but you have to adapt with YouTube. There's always going to be changes and advancements that are made. And with that being said, is specifically like with the click-through rate or the CTR, you know, that's just a common term in oftentimes when you talk with other content creators, if you mention CTR and they're like, what is that? Kind of gives you an idea, like, you know, you might want to brush up a little bit, like with getting in and listening. Now, there's several people I can mention that I personally like, you know, with regard to ones that I can personally relate to and engage with. So I think it really comes down to a personality thing with me. But there's a lot of phenomenal content creators out there that's their entire job and their business is to help other content creators, no matter which niche it is, to become successful and learn about the importance of not only algorithm, not only about analytics, but also the importance of how you market yourself, how you brand yourself, how you present yourself, and that kind of thing. So I mean, it just kind of sometimes amazes me as I think, if I'm being very transparent, is it really comes down to laziness. The amount of time that it takes somebody to ask a specific question, you could literally have put that information right at the palm of your hands in that specific platform for which you are trying to grow, if that makes sense.
Right.
So just take the time, do the research. And again, I couldn't agree more. I agree 100% when it comes to bad information out there. All I can tell you is just personally what I've learned and what I continue to learn and what I continue to do. And again, you can do, if you are super, super serious and you want to invest in it, like if you're looking at this as like to help you, if this is like a marketing platform for you and your business, and this is something that you want to do a long term, no, it's not going to happen overnight. That it takes, sometimes years before you're going to get to the point where before you'll start seeing a return on investment, especially as things change on YouTube with ads and so forth. But with that being said, there's many different influencers out there or content creators specific to help you grow, where you can pay and get like a consultation, and I would highly recommend it. That's something I haven't personally done, but I have a couple of people. If I was going to get serious to learn more, much more than what you just see here, but more behind the scenes and have a one-on-one, I would take that. If it was $500 or $1,000, if you're serious about it, to me, it's worth it, but I think for a lot of people that they're not that serious about it. And that's, again, a mindset issue. Maybe look at it that way. Again, if you're not willing to drop $1,000 right now in order to start to learn, grow your channel, is it worth it that much to you, if that makes sense?
Boy, that
maybe that
really does.
So I have a way about sharing things in different ways. I mean, again, it's just, I try not to ever come across as that guy, where I always have an answer for everything. It's just one of those things. I grew up very young. I mean, most of the people that know my background, it would make sense. Anybody that would be sitting here personally, whether if it's my parents or relatives, that kind of stuff, they would know. I mean, it makes sense. I just, that's all I was. I was driven to make money at a very young age, So I get where people's motivation is at, but just don't focus on the money aspect of it on YouTube. Enjoy what you do. Start producing. Be consistent with it. Don't just focus on, hey, I got to upload on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday kind of thing. Hey, those are all great. It's good to know, when upload time should be and that kind of stuff. But you need to just start out by just producing. And that is something I definitely lack. 100%. I mean, and what I'm grateful for is the fact that my channel continues to grow. And I honestly don't I don't even know last time I even put out any produced content besides a live stream. I can't even tell you. So people are still showing up. I still have some content that would be quote unquote like evergreen content that has been out there for a year, year and a half on the platform. And it's not, I'm not saying it's like from a videography standpoint, it's the best produced, but people learn from it because obviously they're engaging in it. There's still comments and the positive feedback. So it's not like you're just clicking on the video. There's still engagement. And that's kind of one of the things that you see is the fact that sometimes it takes a year, could take a year and a half, 2 years before a specific video may start gaining traction on the platform.
Yeah, that's a real good point. I've had videos before that started out really slow and then got better as they went. All right, guys. Probably go for about 5 more minutes. Does anybody have any more questions on this topic? I don't even know if I see any. Don't really. Mr. B is going to sleep. Good night, Mr. B. Let's see here. Don't really see any questions. I had something that I was thinking about that kind of piggybacked off of what you were saying, but you got me mesmerized in your talks. I think this is something that you could do a lot more of. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I know that's kind of putting you on the spot, but like
with regard to,
well, you know so much about the platform,
and I'm still learning. I'm not even. I would say percentage wise, and what I continue to learn on a daily basis, I even scratch the surface, and that's my point. Is hey, it might sound like, and there's probably people out there, that may watch this later on and be like, just looking at subscribers, this dude only has X amount, blah, blah, blah. And again, that doesn't discourage me. It's just consuming the content I enjoy. That's actually the majority of any content that I consume. When it comes to, if I'm working in the fish room, it's really just learning more about YouTube, because I find it very intriguing. If I'm in the vehicle going get my kiddos from school, hey, I might throw on like a podcast, or I might throw on something related to different aspects of YouTube. And then you have to decipher, hey, what's relevant, what isn't, what works for you, what doesn't. And that's kind of goes back to what I was saying. There's certain people that I may appeal to versus you, or this other person, and vice versa. So it kind of comes down to that human interaction. I mean, it's you either like me or you don't like me. And I'm sure you could probably say the same. I try to never go out of my way to, I don't make it a point to like, hey, who can I offend today kind of thing. That's not my mission. I would say for the most part, for me on the platform, I've always been just kind of a solo dude. And it's nothing like disrespect to, I've always been that way. And that's the thing with me. I've always been very, very independent. And I always take it as a personal challenge to learn. And, that isn't always everybody's personality. It's not like, okay, why aren't you doing more stuff here? I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, would you mind? And these are people that have more subscribers than what I do if we're looking at just subscriber count. And it's not in a disrespectful way, but I want to get to know who you are. Just like with you and anybody else, like we got to know each other. It just didn't happen overnight. I want to get to know who you are. I want to know more about you. I don't care about even the fish keeping. I don't care anything about YouTube. And most people that know me when I've gone to meetups, like I'm not there. Yeah, I might bring my camera bag with me. And it's not like I'm lacking in the fact of technology.
Right.
Half of the time I'm pulling out stuff and they're like, I probably downplay more than what I actually know. But when it comes to that, I get it. I'm still learning a lot about it. And that's what excites me, is constantly like learning. But for me, just going to meetups, I just enjoy hanging out with people.
The meetups were great that we did this year. Me and Jeremy and I got to meet up a couple of times this year, and I know that we'll continue. We'll have even more this year. But going back to what you were just talking about, sometimes we forget when we're on the internet all the time that these people are internet people. I might not really be, the good looking bearded guy that's really nice, so like, even like before I came out, Jeremy's wife sent me a request on Facebook. She wanted to check me out a little bit too. You know, it's one of those type of deals where she has that right as well. You know, he's bringing someone into their home, you know, and I might have been wrong.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I might be wrong. That might have not been why she was doing it. She just might have been. But, you know, if you think about it that way, you are bringing someone from the internet in, and it's best to get to know them first, you know. I mean, yeah. What else was I going to say about that?
One other thing for me is I promise this to anybody. It doesn't matter where I'm at. What you see is what you get. And I think at this point we've known each other long enough and have, you know, actually, again, have that human interaction besides just camera lens, to actually engage and be there in one another's presence, you know, and I've always been, again, this is just always been in my character. It's always been in my nature as a human being, you know, and that goes back to ever since I was a child, is just having that human interaction. Is if I had 100 subscribers or 1 subscriber or 1 million, my attitude would never change. I can promise you that.
Right. I feel the same way. And
again, for me, it's, yeah, you know, I really have a passion and joy, you know, the hobby. And without going into my backstory, you know, people that have heard my story before, it would make more sense of why I have such a passion for the hobby.
Exactly. I will say you are who you say you are. I mean, it's not always just about you. You're not a very selfish person at all. You know, you're always there for me, and I really appreciate it. I guess I want to go ahead and thank you, Jeremy, for coming on with me tonight. I had never had a guest before, and I didn't really give you much notice. I think I asked you today, so that really says a lot. But thank you for coming on tonight. You got anything else you want to say before the end here?
No, I mean, I just, you know, continue to stay encouraged in whatever it is that you're doing. You know, I definitely appreciate, you know, I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of both of us, you know, the entire community, and for their support, you know, for the, you know, the moderators that show up. You know, there was a time when I know I started doing live streams, like, you know, you don't want to offend anybody by not having moderators, but in a sense, it's almost like I feel like, you know, there's an obligation there. And I just always try to make that clear, like, you don't have to have an obligation. You know, I just enjoy people to show up. Just because you have like a wrench doesn't mean that you have to, you know, I don't ever expect that, you know, and it's just like something I'm just saying from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate when people are, you know, showing up and doing that. So if I could afford it, I would, you know, I wish I could like pay every one of the moderators. I know I've said that before over on my channel, but you know, that would be something cool. So again, I'm just a hobbyist at heart. So
all right, well, thank you very much. I know my moderators have been busy this year. This is my 98th live stream, and I appreciate having Jeremy on for it. I really enjoyed it a lot. I didn't get to talk to you guys a whole lot, but it is what it is. I'll be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for our Saturday Night Live Hangout stream. Thanks for everyone that came to this, and hopefully you guys have a great rest of the night.
Have a great night, everybody.
Peace out, y'all.